It began with Daisy. Every night at the same hour, 2 a.m., the golden retriever left her bed at the foot of the children's room and planted herself in front of the narrow closet in the hallway. Her body stiffened, her ears pinned back, and then came the barking. At first, the parents tried to laugh it off. Maybe a mouse, maybe a draft, maybe Daisy was just being overprotective. But the barking didn't stop. It grew sharper, angrier. Every night, the same ritual. Daisy facing the door, barking until her throat went raw, her tail low, her teeth bared. The children stopped sleeping. The walls seemed to hum with her sound. Dad pressed his palms to his temples, begging the dog to quiet down. Mom covered the kids' ears. Then one night, Daisy's growls cut deeper. A sound the family had never heard before. Pure warning. Dad had had enough. He rose from bed, walked down the hallway. The house felt colder there. He reached for the closet handle. Inside the dark space, something shifted. What would you do if your dog barked at the same spot every night? Subscribe, because what happens next will leave you breathless. Dad's hand lingered on the knob for a moment before he pulled. The closet door groaned open. A weak bulb flickered overhead, spilling yellow light over winter coats and stacked boxes of old shoes. Nothing moved, but Daisy didn't relax. Her growl deepened, steady and low, chest vibrating like a motor. She pressed her nose to the floorboards, scratching with one paw. See? Nothing. Dad muttered, though his voice sounded thin. Mom hovered in the hallway, arms folded tight. The children peered from their bedroom doorway, wide-eyed, hugging their blankets. But Daisy's focus was unshakable. Her nails scraped wood. Her hackles rose. Her throat let out short, urgent barks. Dad crouched. He touched the floor. The boards felt cold, almost damp. A faint smell rose, mildew, sour, unfamiliar. He sniffed again. Stronger now. Something rank, hiding beneath the wood. He stood too quickly, forcing a laugh. Probably a mouse nest. Maybe a raccoon got into the house. But Daisy snapped at the crack between boards, teeth flashing. That night the family tried to sleep. They couldn't. Daisy returned to the closet at 2 a.m. sharp, barking and pawing, louder than before. Her body quivered with urgency. The sound carried to the house, pressing into walls, into pillows, into ears. By the third night, the children had dark rings under their eyes. Mom whispered to Dad in the kitchen, voice sharp. "This isn't mice," she said. "You feel it, don't you?" Dad shook his head, though his jaw tightened. "It's an animal, that's all." "Then call pest control." "I will." But he didn't. Not yet. Something inside him resisted, as if acknowledging the problem would make it real. On the fourth night, the smell worsened. A wet, sour odor seeped from the hallway. It clung to the coats in the closet, drifted into the children's room. Mom gagged when she opened the door for school. "David, this isn't normal," she hissed, pressing a hand to her nose. Daisy barked harder that night. Not random bursts, deliberate, rhythmic, as if trying to warn, as if trying to speak. The children began whispering in the dark. The youngest, Emma, asked if a ghost lived in the closet. Her brother laughed at her. But when Daisy barked again, he pulled the blanket higher around his chin. By the end of the week, the family was unraveling. Dinner went untouched. Conversations turned sharp. Sleep vanished. The house felt alive in the worst way, breathing, pulsing, waiting. One evening, after the kids were finally in bed, Mom stood in the hallway, staring at the closet. Daisy stood guard beside her, chest heaving. "It smells like something died under there," Mom whispered. Dad joined her, frowning at the door. "Tomorrow I'll pry the boards up, just to check." Daisy's tail thumped once, as if in agreement. That night stretched long. Every creak of the house made the children whimper. Daisy never left her post, her body pressed against the closet, eyes locked on the crack at the bottom. At 2 a.m. the barking began again. Furious, relentless. Mom sat up in bed, clutching the blanket. Dad dragged his hands over his face, exhausted. "Please," she whispered, "just look. Tonight." He hesitated, then swung his legs off the mattress. He grabbed a flashlight from the drawer. In the hallway, Daisy barked louder, claws scratching, tail stiff. The smell struck harder, filling the air with rot and damp earth. Dad knelt by the closet, opened the door again. The coat swayed slightly, though no air moved. He clicked on the flashlight, rammed the beam over floorboards, though it seemed to pulse. For a moment, he swore the surface shifted, like a breath under planks. He leaned closer. Daisy lunged forward, barking in his ear as if warning him back. Mom's voice cracked behind him. "What do you see?" He swallowed. His light caught a faint line, thinner than a pencil, running between two boards. Not a natural seam. A cut, almost deliberate. The smell grew stronger, sour and sweet all at once, clinging to his throat. He sat back on his heels, shaken. Daisy's bark dropped into a growl that vibrated through the hallway. "Tomorrow," he said. "I'll get the tools tomorrow." But tomorrow felt far away. The night stretched on. The barking didn't stop. The board seemed to shift again, barely perceptible, as though something waited just beneath. And when the children woke crying from nightmares of scratching hands, Daisy was still there, still guarding, still refusing to let the family forget. The closet breathed, and the house waited. The first sound came just before dawn. Dad stirred in bed, half asleep, when he heard it. Soft, steady, unmistakable. Scratching. Not the random scurry of mice, but a dragging scrape, like fingernails against wood. It seemed to crawl along the wall near the closet. He sat up, heart-thudding. Listen. The sound stopped. When he rose and opened the hallway door, Daisy was already there, rigid, ears sharp, her body angled toward the closet. Her chest heaved. Her teeth glistened. "Nothing," he whispered, though his voice trembled. But the next night it returned. Faint scratches, pacing, as if something wanted out. The children began waking from nightmares. Emma sobbed into her pillow, whispering about hands reaching from the walls. Her brother snapped at her in the daylight, called her silly. But in the dark, he crept into her room and slept on the floor beside her bed. Mom's patience thinned. Shadows weighed on her face, sleepless and pale. At breakfast, she snapped at Dad. "You hear it. Don't tell me you don't." "I hear it," he admitted. His spoon clinked against the bowl. "But I don't know what it is. Pest control. This isn't rats." Her voice cracked, trembling. "This is something else." That evening, Dad checked the lock. He twisted it twice, making sure the closet was sealed. The children watched nervously from the hallway, Daisy pacing at their feet. But in the morning, when the first sunlight crept through the curtains, the closet door stood open, wide. Dad froze in the hallway. The coats swayed inside, heavy shadows shifting against one another. The lock still hung in place, but the door itself gaped. The children clung to Mom, who whispered prayers under her breath. Daisy lunged forward, teeth snapping at the empty air inside the closet. She growled so fiercely her body shook. She looked ready to throw herself into the dark if anything moved. Dad slammed the door shut, bolted again, his hands shaking harder than he wanted to admit. That night, the scratching grew louder, longer. The sound slid along the walls, traveled up and around the frame of the door. Sometimes quick, sometimes slow. The house itself seemed alive with the noise. Mom pressed her hands over her ears. This isn't something living under the house. This is in the walls. This is in the room with us. Dad tried to steady his breathing, tried to cling to reason, but reason felt thin in this place. At 2 a.m., Daisy erupted again. Her barking tore through the house, furious and unrelenting. She slammed her body against the closet door. Her nails tore at the wood. Her teeth scraped metal. The children screamed from their room, running to their parents. Dad pulled Daisy back by her collar, but she thrashed against him, refusing to yield. Her eyes glowed wild, locked on that door. And then they heard it. From inside the closet, 3 knocks. Slow, deliberate. The hallway fell silent. Daisy whimpered once, then launched forward with renewed fury. Mom grabbed the children, pulling them close, her body shielding theirs. Dad stood frozen, staring at the door. It hadn't been a dream. It hadn't been their imaginations. Something knocked back. When morning finally came, the family sat in silence around the kitchen table. No one touched their food. No one spoke. Daisy lay at their feet, eyes still trained toward the hallway, ears twitching at every sound. Dad finally broke. "I'm calling pest control. Today." Mom shook her head violently. "They won't fix this. This isn't bugs or mice. This," she broke off, glancing at the children, unwilling to finish her thought. Dad slammed his hand on the table. "Then what is it? Tell me what you think it is." She said nothing, only held the children closer. That night, he pulled out his toolbox. He couldn't wait for strangers to shrug and say, "Rats." He needed to see, needed to prove to himself that there was a simple explanation. But when he pried at the floorboards near the closet, the wood didn't come free. It resisted, warped, as if glued by years of damp and something else. He hammered. Daisy barked louder. The smell grew sharper, choking. The children huddled behind Mom in the living room, watching from afar, silent as ghosts. Finally, he dropped the tools, sweat dripping from his face. The boards would not give. Daisy barked through the night again, guarding with her body pressed against the door until the first light of dawn. And when the sun rose, the closet door stood ajar once more, the lock still in place, the coat swaying inside. But this time, long scratches carved into the wood from inside. By the fourth night, Dad couldn't take it anymore. The closet door gaped again that morning, though the lock was still snapped shut. Long scratches marked the wood, deeper than before, sharp grooves carved like claw marks or fingernails. Mom refused to let the children near. She pulled them close and whispered prayers, eyes wide, as Daisy pressed her body against the closet and growled at the board beneath. Dad's mind was breaking under the weight of it. Pest control hadn't answered his calls quickly enough, and deep down he knew they couldn't explain this anyway. He gathered his tools. Crowbar, hammer, flashlight. The house fell into silence as he knelt before the closet floor. Daisy quivered beside him, pacing, pawing at the cracks, her throat buzzing with a low growl. Mom stood at the hallway's edge, pale, clutching Emma's hand. "Don't," she whispered. "You don't know what's under there." "That's exactly why I have to," he muttered, setting the crowbar into the seam. The first strike echoed through the house like a gunshot. The wood moaned. The smell rose immediately, thick and sour, filling their throats with rot. Daisy barked violently, tail stiff, ears flat. Another strike. Another groan. Then the board lifted. The odor rushed out, so strong that Mom gagged and covered the children's faces with her sleeve. A hole yawned in the floor. Dad coughed hard, waved away the dust, then shined his flashlight into the gap. Darkness stretched beneath the house, but not like any crawl space he'd expected. This wasn't open ground. It was built, dug deliberately. A tunnel. Daisy didn't wait. With a furious bark, she bolted through the opening, nails scraping against dirt. "Daisy!" Dad shouted, reaching. But she was gone, swallowed by the dark. Her barking echoed from below, sharp and urgent. He hesitated, heart pounding, then dropped to his knees and pushed his body into the hole. His flashlight beam shook in his grip as he crawled forward. The tunnel was narrow, walls packed tight with damp earth. The smell worsened the deeper he went. Something between mold and death, a stench that clung to his skin, his hair, his lungs. Daisy barked ahead, the sound bouncing back against the walls. Each echo seemed to carry another sound with it, like faint breathing that wasn't his own. The farther he crawled, the more the tunnel widened. His flashlight caught glimpses, splinterwood beams propping up the walls, damp fabric scraps clinging to dirt, crumbled paper. And then an object, a doll, its face cracked, its hair matted with soil. "One glass I'm missing." He froze, breath caught in his throat. The flashlight beam swept wider. More toys, rusted cars, shattered blocks. A teddy bear with one arm. His pulse hammered. The tunnel opened into a hollow chamber. And that's where he saw them. Blankets, torn and blackened with filth. Plastic wrappers. Crushed cans. Bones. So many bones. Small ones. Large ones. Arranged in no pattern. scattered like trash. Dad's breath caught, shallow and ragged. His hand shook so hard the flashlight beam jittered over the scene, flashing horror in fragments. Daisy stood in the center of it, growling at something deeper still. Her fur bristled, teeth glinting in the weak light. Dad knelt there, stunned. The air felt heavy, pressing down on him. Whoever had been here hadn't been an animal scavenger. These were human remnants. Someone, maybe many, had lived here, hidden here, died here. The smell was unbearable now. He gagged, pressed a sleeve to his mouth, eyes watering. Behind him, a voice called faintly, "David!" Mom's voice, shaking, weak. He turned and shouted back, "Stay upstairs. Don't come down here." But Daisy barked again, more frantic, driving him forward. Something had shifted in the shadows at the far end of the chamber. A rustle, a scrape. He froze. His flashlight beam quivered as he swept it toward the sound. The light caught movement. Fabric, then something pale. Something that darted back into the dark. His chest clenched. "Daisy!" he hissed, clutching her collar. She snarled, lunging, desperate to go further. But Dad could barely breathe. His heart pounded, his palms slick against the flashlight. His rational mind screamed to turn back, to bore the hole and never speak of it again. But his eyes stayed locked on the shadows, because he knew what he saw wasn't a rat. It wasn't an animal. It had been a person. The chamber seemed to breathe around him, as if the earth itself held its breath. Daisy's growl deepened, her body tense like a bowstring. And Dad realized, with a chill sinking into his bones, that whatever had lived here might not be gone. That night, the house felt thinner. Every sound carried. Every shadow seemed to move. Dad had sealed the hole in the floor with plywood and nails. He had hammered until his arms shook, until his palms blistered. But even as he worked, Daisy had stood stiff in the hallway, staring at the closet, growling at what lingered beneath. Mom had tried to calm the children. She had laid them in their beds, humming songs she didn't believe in anymore. But their eyes stayed wide. Emma whispered, "It's still here." Her brother turned away, silent. But he didn't argue. The air was different that night, heavy, expectant. Then at 2 a.m., the sound began. Not scratching this time. Not knocking. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Uneven. They moved across the hallway floorboards, creaking with weight. Emma screamed first. Her brother followed. Both bolted from their beds and ran to their mother, sobbing. Daisy erupted. She hurled herself at the closet, barking with a fury that shook the walls. Her teeth snapped. Her claws tore deep grooves into the wood. Dad rose from bed with a bat in his hands, sweat slick on his skin. He stepped into the hallway, every nerve burning. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then the closet handle turned. Metal clicked. The lock slid free. The door creaked open, just an inch. Then another. The coats inside swayed, though no air stirred. Daisy lunged, snarling, foam at her lips. She rammed the door so hard it burst wide, and out of the darkness stumbled a figure. Small, frail, a girl, her skin pale as wax, her hair tangled in mats. Her legs shook beneath her, thin as sticks. Her lips trembled as she whispered a single word. "Help." The hallway froze. Mom gasped, clutching the children tighter. Dad lowered the bat, stunned, his heart racing so violently it hurt. Daisy stopped barking and pressed against the girl instead, whining, licking her dirt-streaked hands. The girl blinked into the light, dazed, like she hadn't seen brightness in years. Her eyes were hollow, but alive. Dad crouched slowly, his voice raw. "Who are you?" The girl swayed on her feet. Her breath rattled. She whispered again, "Help me." And then she collapsed. Mom rushed forward, dropping to her knees. Together they lifted the girl, her body light as a feather, trembling in their arms. Her skin burned with fever. Her lips cracked. She smelled of earth and rot. They carried her to the couch. Daisy stayed at her side, refusing to move, whimpering low as if guarding her. The children clung to each other, silent, eyes wide in shock. Dad knelt beside the girl, pressing a damp cloth to her forehead. His hands shook. "She's starving," he whispered. "Dehydrated. God knows how long she's been down there." Mom's face was pale. Her voice broke. "In our house. All this time." The girl stirred faintly, her eyes opening just a crack. "Don't send me back," she whispered, voice hoarse. Dad's chest tightened. "Back where?" But her eyes closed again. Her body sagged deeper into the couch cushions. They sat in silence, the only sound Daisy's restless panting. Finally, Mom spoke. Her words cut the air like glass. "David," someone kept her there. The weight of it dropped heavy in the room. The tunnel, the toys, the blankets, the bones. Dad's stomach turned. He pressed his palms to his eyes, shaking his head. The girl wasn't a ghost. She wasn't a nightmare. She was real, flesh and bone and blood. And she had been living beneath their home, or hiding, or trapped. As the night stretched on, the girl slept fitfully, murmuring words they couldn't understand. Daisy stayed pressed against her side, standing guard. Mom sat awake in a chair, staring at the hallway. The closet door hung open still, a black mouth leading to the dark. Every creak of the house made her flinch. Every breath of wind against the window felt like someone outside, watching. When dawn came, Dad stood at the window, bat still clutched in his hand. His eyes burned from sleeplessness. He knew the truth wasn't finished. The girl wasn't the whole story. She was only the beginning. And whatever secret the house had kept hidden in its walls was about to surface. The girl slept through the morning, her breathing shallow, her body curled into itself on the couch as if still hiding from the dark. The family gathered in the kitchen, whispering so quietly even their words seemed afraid to disturb her. Daisy lay stretched across the threshold between rooms, half her body in the kitchen, half in the living room, guarding both spaces at once. "She's a child," Mom said, clutching a mug of untouched coffee. Her voice shook. "She can't be more than 13, 14. Dad rubbed his hands over his face. "She's been down there, God knows how long." Emma sat at the table, knees drawn to her chest. Her brother leaned against her shoulder, silent, pale. The smell from the closet still clung to the air, though the door was shut now. No one wanted to go near it. No one even looked that way. Hours passed. The girl stirred. Her lips parted, whispering words so faint Mom had to bend close to hear them. "Hungry?" Mom rushed to the kitchen, fumbling with bread, soup, anything soft enough for her to swallow. The girl ate slowly, trembling, each bite followed by a glance toward the hallway, as though terrified something might drag her back down. Between sips of water, her story spilled out in fragments. Her name was Lily. She had run away weeks ago, from a place she wouldn't name at first, from someone she feared too much to describe. She had found a crawl space under the house by chance. She thought it would be safe, hidden, but it became a prison. She was too weak to leave, too afraid to be seen, too lost to find another way. So she stayed, living off scraps, drinking condensation that pooled beneath the boards, sleeping among the remains of others who had hidden before her. Her voice cracked when she whispered, "I thought I would die there." Mom's eyes filled with tears. She brushed the girl's filthy hair back with trembling hands. "Not anymore," she whispered. "You're safe now. You're safe." Dad called the police. His voice shook as he described what they'd found, the tunnel, the chamber, the bones. Officers promised to send help immediately, but when he hung up, silence returned. A silence too heavy for relief, because the truth pressed deeper than they could name. Who had dug that space? Who had lived there before Lily? And why hadn't anyone ever known? The family didn't ask. Not yet. They only focused on the child in their living room. As the days stretched into evening, neighbors gathered outside, watching flashing lights as officers and medics arrived. Whispers spread through the street. A runaway child. A hidden crawl space. Bones beneath the family's home. Inside, Lily clung to Daisy. The dog pressed against her side, eyes soft, chest rising and falling in rhythm with hers. When officers tried to approach, Lily panicked. She shook her head violently, whispering, "No, please, don't take me back." Mom crouched in front of her, cupping her face gently. They're not here to hurt you. They're here to help. But even if you don't trust them, trust Daisy. She found you. She'll stay. Lily's small hands tightened in Daisy's fur. The officers nodded, moving slowly, carefully, as though they knew they had stepped into a wound too deep to rush. Medical staff checked Lily, malnourished, dehydrated, scarred but alive. They promised to take her somewhere safe. But when they reached for her, Daisy growled softly, standing her ground. The room froze, and then Dad knelt, laying a hand on Daisy's back. His voice broke as he whispered, "It's okay, girl. You've done your job." For a moment, Daisy didn't move. Then, slowly, she lowered her head and rested it back on Lily's lap. The girl clutched her tightly, whispering words of thanks into her fur. By the time the officers left, arrangements made, the truth was clear. Lily had escaped cruelty. She had found refuge, though it nearly destroyed her. And Daisy, the dog no one listened to at first, had saved her life. That night, the family gathered in the living room. The closet door remained shut, but its weight was gone. For the first time in weeks, silence didn't feel threatening. Lily slept soundly, wrapped in clean blankets. Daisy curled against her chest. The dog's breathing was calm. No growls, no barks, no restless pacing. For the first time, Daisy was at peace. The children sat nearby, watching her chest rise and fall, whispering questions they didn't yet have answers for. Mom sat with her arm around Dad, eyes on the girl and the dog together. Her voice was soft, reverent. She wasn't barking at the dark, she whispered. She was barking at the pain. She knew. Dad nodded, throat tight. He reached for Daisy's paw, resting his hand there gently. "Good girl," he whispered. The house was quiet now, not haunted, not waiting, only still. And as Daisy sighed in her sleep, pressed close to the girl she had saved, the family knew one truth would remain long after the horror faded. The dog had been the hero all along.